Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order for the Jacksonville Tourism Development Authority meeting today. I'd like to welcome all of you. Thank you for being here with us today. Today is an exciting day because we have some new members that we will be swearing in just a moment. I want to welcome Councilmember Randy Thomas. Thank you for agreeing to serve on our committee. We certainly appreciate it. And Mr. Miguel Murillo is also joining us today from
Hampton Inn Suites.
There's your plug. That's the only one you got.
That's
it. So again, thank you guys for being here today. And we also have our new Sports Commission Executive Director with us today, Scott Smith. So thank you for being with us today. And you'll have your chance a little later to give us an introduction and a little update. Okay? So thank you. First order of business is to adopt the agenda. Actually, let me step back. We're going to go ahead and do our oath of offices. So if I can ask both of you to please step forward. If you'll join me, Ken. We'll do our oaths and make them official. Carmen?
You want to just line up right here. If you want to hold the Bible for one, and I have the Bible, you just line up over there.
Randy, just come next to him so that you can
2 weeks.
camera.
Really? Yes, for
And
sure.
then you will place your left hand on the
100%.
Bible, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. I state your full name.
I, Randy Thomas,
Miguel Murillo.
Do solemnly swear
do
Do
solemnly
solemnly
swear
swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and
the
maintain
Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution and laws
and the
and the
Constitution and laws
of North Carolina,
of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as Authority Director.
as Authority Director.
So help me God.
So help
help me
me
God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Ken.
Welcome.
Thank you.
For a minute there, I thought Randy and I were gonna get married.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. And welcome again. So we'll get down to business. Our first order of business obviously is to adopt the agenda. You've had a copy emailed to you, and you also have it before you. If I can get a motion to adopt the agenda, we'll move forward.
I make the motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you, Melody. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay. Next order of business is the approval of our May 25th meeting, authority meeting minutes. Again, if there's no changes or any errors that you've noticed, we'll entertain a motion to adopt those minutes as well.
So moved.
Have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next order of business is going to be the emeritus status. As you know, Mr. Hemingway is now the first member to be established as an emeritus board member. And John, I'll let you give a brief history of our adoption of the emeritus status for our organization.
Yes, sir. The council, in recognition of Mr. Hemingway's service and dedication, established at their last regular meeting, as I recall, in June, besides the appointment of these two gentlemen here, the emeritus status for a TDA director. The and besides establishing that, they also appointed Mr. Hemingway as the first recipient of that. And I'm sorry Mr. Hemingway's not here today, but when he's able to come, he will have a placard, have a place at the table. He will be able to have a voice. The only thing he won't be able to do in that status is to actually vote. But otherwise, he has all the accoutrements of the office that y'all hold. But again, an honor for a true public servant, Mr. Bill Hemingway.
Thank you, John. Mr. Hemingway has been a knowledge of history and has always been an asset to everything he has ever served on. And we're very excited to offer him that status as the first member. So we wanted to give that recognition, and we also wanted to share that with you, that in the future there may be others that may be elected to that. Now, I guess, what I'd also ask Glenn to do is, since we do have a few new board members, I think it's appropriate to give a little bit of history about who we are, where we've been, how we got here, just so that, not only for new members, but for us older members to sort of go down in history and rekindle what we've all worked hard to do. So Glenn, if you will.
Thank you, sir, and welcome aboard, you folks.
Thank you.
Some of you have lived through parts of this, so you know what this is, but we're going to do this, and for those watching, and we'll see this in history, that we nodded to our past and how we got here to where we are today. First of all is on the history of the occupancy tax. Efforts to have a tax for Jacksonville date back to actually the mid-'80s. And the late 90s, there was a lot of effort after a series of community summits to look for some methods of financing some of the items that came to be. And the Museum of the Marine was one of the first ones that came up as something they would like to see financed through an occupancy tax. And then it was the Civic Center was another option that felt like that there could be some funding that would be helpful to operate a civic center. Well, there was considerable industry opposition, and it was about the idea that there were some bills out there that were non-compliant and some bills that were compliant, and wanting to have some consistency of them. And so Jacksonville kind of got caught in a place of said that if you don't do this, you won't get that. And that's the way it didn't happen. But after a session with the legislators, basically around 2008, there was an effort that was made to have a revision of the thought, and it was Representative Robert Grady who came up with the idea about doing this and having some money swap with the county or doing something such as that. And the delegation that was in office at the time encouraged the filing. There was some opposition to the bill for Jacksonville, but its passage was made effective July 1st, 2010, and that's when we were able to start collecting taxes. It was adopted August 6, 2009, and this is the part of the legislation that was actually set forth. The council, to effect this, had to do two resolutions. One of them authorized the collection of the tax, and the other one created the body that you now sit on as the Tourism Development Authority. And it has been statutorily, so to speak, empowered to do certain things in addition to what is outlined in the resolutions there. But the bill is what's called compliant bill. That is to say, it follows the model of bills that the lobbyists had wanted and the legislature, the Finance Committee of the House, had adopted under their rules as what they would do. And basically that has to do with how the money is spent. Now, both these resolutions just mirror the state law. There's no deviation from them. Mr. Carter would have caught that quick out on this matter there. And to that set was that it follows the 3% maximum levy that the city can have here. And we did affect that 3% rate. Now, knowing the county has 3%, the custom is that no county have more than 6%. Now, they've broken that obviously a couple of times for different geographies that are out there. And the levy for the compliant bill follows a rule that says basically if you're a facility that's required to pay sales tax and you do overnight lodging, you have to pay occupancy tax. And that's another way that it's different from the bill that the county operates under, because it's an older bill that did not have those constrictions in it. So it was not only authorization to collect the tax, it gave the authorization to collect an administrative fee to the city for collecting this. And of course, as we all know, this is where we go into the 2/3, 1/3 conversation. That is, the 2/3 be used to promote travel and tourism after the administrative fee is taken from the gross tax, and the remainder can be used for tourism-related expenses. And it sets the membership for the Council for the Tourism Development Authority in accord to state law, and initially named 6 to be the members of this. And it follows the state law naming the finance director by she has to become the authority finance director as it was. And it set out some duties and about the reports to council. Now, the city did put into the record that for people to be on this board, they have to be a city resident, with the exception of those who have required membership. And that includes the people who have to be affiliated with a tax collecting entity, as it was. And it set that they wanted staggered terms so that there would not be a wholesale wipe of the board at any time. Toward the authority membership, 1/3 have to be affiliated with a facility that collects the tax, and obviously as a 6-member board, that's 2, and we have Miguel and Melody who are affiliated with facilities clearly that collect the tax. And then 1/2 of the membership have to be active in the promotion of travel and tourism, and we do have that on our group now as it is too. And members can be both Miguel and Melody serve on the Tourism Advisory Board with Kristen Lofton that administers that. And then we also have that Mr. Lazara is active in travel and tourism, particularly in his work with the North Carolina resort towns and convention cities as it was. The council names the authority chairman, and they named the Mayor Pro Tem, Michael Lazara, as the chairman. And as you can see here, how the ballots were cast back in the day when on May 18th, they set the membership for this. They also appointed Ernie Wright as a shadow member at that time, and he since has been elected to be a full member of this authority. The mention was about the administration, about that there has to be separate fund accounting, an annual audit, and of course the reports to the city council as it is. The city collects the tax and remits it to the authority, and since there's a shared finance director, that happens more electronically than anything else. And of course the city gets some compensation from the administrative fee, and the city manager assigns staff as needed in there. Now, where the money comes from, any room, lodging, or accommodation furnished by a hotel, motel, inn, tourist camp, or similar space within the city that is subject to sales tax. And again, this is the language that's different from the county bill because of that subject to GS 105-164.4 paren A. And we've had that. There are some also exemptions. If you rent a resident or a cottage that is subject to something as a sales tax and you do it for less than 15 days, or if you have lodging to the same person for more than 90 days, and we lived through this in the first iterations. Melody was of great value to us of helping to understand the hospitality industry from that effect. They are exempt, and we actually have to refund the money to the payer of that tax if it's 90 days. And apartments, week-to-week rentals, the state ruled that no, that our bill would not cover them. And then airlines who rent rooms continuously for the staff, the state rules that airlines are considered the same person. A corporation is a person, we've heard that in politics before, the same for this statute. So when the airlines have hotel rooms that are continuously operated, they're basically exempt from paying the occupancy tax. Now, a recent action that Mr. Carter helped to champion was getting some of these online entities to pay. And you're going to see in the receipts, if you haven't already looked at them there, there's a spike during 2015 that came in when we got some payments in. And some of them obviously have some payback into the past. But the point of it is that we now get them, and we get it's about for FY17 it was a little more than $13,000, but at least we're getting that as it was, and there might still be some out there that are not paying all of it what it is. Now, this also applies to corporate hotel companies that have residents that they have started acquiring to handle and to provide for others. And there are several large chains and things that do that in Jacksonville that have some of those payments, and their payments go in under the online payment for matters out there. And there are a few private renters, particularly Airbnb. There's one in a neighborhood that's very close to where we are right now that produces some regular income to occupancy tax that's out there as it is. Now, in spending, as mentioned, this is where we go to that 1/3, 2/3, and such there. And the 2/3 is to promote travel and tourism. The remainder can be used for tourism-related expenditure. The promotion of travel and tourism, as you can see defined here, it gives you basically that you do such things. They're looking a little antiquated by using words like distribute pamphlets and other materials because now we do so many things digitally. But anyway, we're allowed to do that all under what we call the pink money for promotion money that we have out there as it is. And then for tourism-related expenditures, in the judgment of you as authority directors, what you think will design some facility that's designed to increase the use of lodging facilities, meeting facilities, convention facilities in the city, or to attract tourists or business travelers to the city, and it includes tourism-related capital expenditures. It specifically states out that brick and mortar is allowed in the green money as it was. Now, I would ask the Mayor Pro Tem, the chairman of this authority, to talk about the impending legislative change, because he helped to champion that as it was. And here's the language that you helped to advance after the city council authorized you to go forward to get this, what we call the flip.
Thank you, Glenn. With the history that you just received, when we first got into this business, one of our main goals was not to duplicate services. And under this guideline, you have this one-third, two-third money, and basically in the city of Jacksonville, between the city and county, the two-thirds promotional money and what the county's work was, it's a lot of money for promotion. And basically, the city of Jacksonville needs to invest more in capital projects for destination-based activities rather than promotion. And so one of our efforts was to work with our delegation to have that switched. We wanted to have two-thirds, one-third, two-thirds for capital projects and one-third for promotion. We felt that that was the best scenario for our city. So we've been working for quite some time with Senator Brown, and he has been a champion for the city of Jacksonville in working this issue at the legislature. And we have finally made some progress, or I should say he has made some progress, and it looks like we are there. We have one more reading in August for it to become final, and as we understand that it will be final and it will be flipped for the city of Jacksonville with a 10-year sunset, and it'll be two-thirds, one-thirds. Now, the League of Municipalities, as one of its goals, is to relook at this funding mechanism or criteria statewide, because most cities and towns believe that every town is different and every need is different, and the money should be should have better flexibility, that any given town should be able to utilize the money based on what their city needs. Also being, strategically placed for promotion, bringing people back to the community, heads on beds, and that's why it's collected. So again, that's also one of the league's initiatives. So in the future, we hope that there'll be some compromise and that one-size-fits-all mechanism will be changed. So this is a great news for us, because it will allow us to have more capital funding to do projects that we believe will enhance more stays for people that come and visit their loved ones here in our community. So that we've invested in a study for a multi-purpose complex based on the information that we received from the Sports Commission and the Chamber of Commerce in terms of facility needs to enhance sporting events and get people here and keep them here and stay in our lodging facility. So there's many opportunities. Nothing is in concrete, but this is just an example of what we would be allowed to utilize funding for. So again, I would like to personally thank Senator Brown for his efforts, and it's important for everyone to know the work that he's done for our community. So, Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's what we wanted you to do, was to tell that background as it was. And so now we'll just look quickly at some of the receipts, the collections over time. I might say this is the very last page of your paper document, and if you're following along on the online document, it's under there. We normally give this as a part of the report about collections, so you'll see it here. And this is basically showing what is so far. Now, this is as of early this week in collections. The taxes due into the city by the 20th of the month. So we do have some facilities that pay late, and they pay a fine. The fines and forfeitures all go to the school board. They don't accrue to us. But they have benefited at least a classroom of construction, and the fines, I'm confident, that have been paid over time for this in this community. So bottom line is, you can see that we had the years of FY11 and 12 were remarkable, and you're going to hear some more about that as it was. And then we had new facilities come online, basically FY13, and now we're going to have during FY18, we're going to have another facility coming online, Melody tells me. So we're going to go from there. Now, during this time, our strategies started one place and we've ended up at another place. And so to help guide us through that, because things changed, you've got to be flexible in that. I've asked Teresa Beecham if she now would look at how we arrived at the early strategy and how we've gotten to where we are now.
Okay. So looking at, when I came on board thank you very much, by the way. When I came on board and began to work with the authority, you guys had already hired a research firm to confirm, to do some studies, and they basically confirmed what you already knew, what anybody that lives in the community knows, and that was that who stays in Jacksonville, who stays in the lodging facilities, and who is paying these taxes. And that was, 60% roughly stay because they're here visiting loved ones. The other 40% is made up of business, sports, and temporary workers at that time. What year was that 11?
That was late 11, yes.
And, what we do know is that even though that was confirmed, that probably some of the business, some of the temporary workers, and also some of the leisure probably was tied to military again. So those numbers may not be as concrete as they appear. The original strategy at that time was, to build things that people can visit and to get them to stay overnight, to extend their stays overnight. So we supported that with activities that will draw overnight stays, events that will encourage their visitation, efforts that would build on excellence. We could help some of the events with creating better events and more professionalism, and programs that have more potential. So that, as part of the original strategy, we promoted destinations and events and some sports. We have collaborated to not duplicate county-funded efforts. However, in doing so, we don't duplicate efforts, but we work very, very closely now with the county, closer than we ever have every year. We're getting closer. We work very well with Kristen and her team and her marketing agency, so that we don't duplicate efforts, and they know what we're doing and we know what they're doing, so that it all works together, since we have two budgets to work with. We fund overnight stay generators, obviously, and we work with the state travel effort through Visit and See. The event issues that we address are, some of the events were slow growing. We know that some of the events have limitations on their growth because we don't have the facility that can grow the events, and some of the sporting events as well. Many of the events have turnover because they're volunteers that lead the events. So in essence, when they turn over, we're starting over. And the length of the events, typically, if it's a one-day event, we've encouraged them to have a two-day event to encourage overnight stays in our facilities. So the evolving strategy that we adopted in 2016, again, knowing that the loved ones produce most of the stays, the strategy was to extend their stay. So if they're coming to stay and they stay a day, maybe they'll come for Oktoberfest, for instance, and they'll stay for an extra night or an extra 2 nights. So the evolving strategy has been event-centered with some institutional, and moving toward events and experiences. The events and experiences now is going to, and has been recently, including all of the area, including the beaches, enhancing experiences that they have and adding experiences. And featuring experiences. We're featuring experiences, showing people what they maybe can do if they want to be out on the water and that sort of thing. So what we did learn too is that some formative events that we hosted, we learned that Jacksonville, we showed our capacity as a community to pull off some fabulous events. In the 4th Marine Division final muster we did early last year, early 16? Is that right? Yeah. And it put a lot of heads on beds. We had to pull it together rather quickly. It was a really, really hot day, but it was a historic moment in our town. The other event that we were able to pull off really on the fly was the Second Marine Division 75th anniversary. And that one was really cold, but we had potential to even do more with that. But we know that the capacity as a community, we can pull these type of things together. So the four key pillars that we know we have in tourism assets are the military and military-related, outdoor, particularly water activities. We have fishing, we have outdoor sporting, kayaking, that type of deal. We have sports, and we have other experiences that we can promote, being bayonet cruises. We have distilleries now. We have authentic events such as Oktoberfest and that sort of thing. And we'll touch on some of that as well. Some of the key components that we'll do is we're telling our story. We're working on reunions, tours. We're working on the base tours, as some of you know, and garden tours, the Lejeune Memorial Garden Tours, sports development, and enhancing our visitor experience. This is how we're spending money. So what we do know is, if you guys are familiar with this, with North Carolina Weekend on PBS, it is it's all about the experience. Everybody wants an experience, and the 96-hour experience is what's happening right now. People will go somewhere for a weekend, and they will use a gateway event and then stay for 2 days. So they'll stay for that 96 hours because they have come into town for the Marine Corps Half Marathon, but what else can I do for that weekend? So we know we have some, opportunity there as well. This, we're going to show you a couple of them. This is all about the experience. This is a photo grabbed from the Marine Corps Half Marathon, where 60%, what we've learned is 60% of the participants, what we've learned from the surveys that come back, 60% of the participants in all of the MCCS running events are women. A large majority of those women, this particular race is on their bucket list. So they came to Camp Lejeune to do this. This woman, you can see, is doing a selfie with the added touch of the young Marine adding the ribbon around her neck, the medal rather, and it went viral, it went social, she put it everywhere. So if that's not, powerful, I don't know what is. Speaking of experience, if you don't know, we all do, food and dining is huge. That's our famous Paul Parker. Nobody else has it in the world but Jacksonville, North Carolina. We are going to capitalize on that. We have already started. We need to tell the story. It's a great story. It's a great sandwich. Anybody in here not had a Paul Parker? If you haven't, have you had one?
I have not.
You have got to have one,
I don't
Scott.
know what a Paul Parker is.
We're going to tell you. It's a great sandwich. It's a great story. So Our State Magazine, if you all have that magazine, it came out just last weekend, Hole in the Wall Diners. It's actually diner bordering on dive. Jeff's. He made, through our contacts through Susan Dozier with her contacts, when she came to town, she's one of our consultants as well. You guys are familiar with her. She did she had all her pictures, and we took her to Jeff's Diner, and she ate there, and she absolutely loved it. Well, Southern Living called, and because of her connections with them, and they wanted to actually do a story. Southern Living was doing a story, as you remember, on 50 of the, what was it, the story, 50 of the best?
Bordering on dives, and
Okay.
diners.
Okay. And so Jeff's made the list because she had the picture, she had the story, she gave him the story, and he was featured in Southern Living, and needless to say, it skyrocketed his business for a couple of months. For sure, he was very excited to be there. So getting earned media is critical, and it really gives you a lot of return on the investment. And it's all about the connections and the relationships that you have. So we have, through our event that we did in last year with Montford Point, we got some of the most powerful earned media that you can possibly get. In the age of fake news, this one really, was resonated, and it was a historic moment for our community. But through Susan's connection with a journalist who actually lives in Wilmington, who sends some stories to Washington Post, we made the front page of the Washington Post with that story of Montford Point. So gave us tremendous return. Additionally, the story resonates with people, and it resonated with the media. It went out on AP. It got 400 outlets, papers, TV, Fox News, et cetera. So we had a good hit with that one. Some of the outreach messages we're pushing: we can give you a unique experience, we honor our heroes, stay an extra day. The outreach messages, we're going to continue to target millennials and baby boomers using the a bargain outdoor and beach vacations, which can work really well. People are always looking for that. They can stay in town, do the day trips, they can visit loved ones, they can do the gardens, but they can also go to the beach. We're going to continue to investigate the retirement certification, which we started last year. This will, we're investigating it. We'll see how it pans out. But in the interim, what we know is people that search retirement communities, they at least visit. So they'll come stay for the weekend, whether they choose us as their final destination to retire or not, we're at least getting visitations. So we'll continue to monitor the efforts there and the return on investment. And we will continue to develop the quality of our events and get more overnight guests. Where the message goes, we are continuing to build the website. As you know, we launched a new website last year, and it is the nerve center of everything we do. We're going to spend some additional time and money on the website this year, doing some SEO and pushing that out and getting people driving more traffic there. We are using USA Today travel editions. We're going to continue to use digital influencers, which we're going to talk about in a second. PR, media relations is critical, social media outlets, and event recruitment. So outreach strategy, as an example, here's what we did in March of 2017. This was our calendar. It was a busy month. Glenn Hargett did not sleep. Bless his heart. The first thing we did is we did the familiarization tour. Susan helped implement this, and this is, for anybody who doesn't know, it's you invite a whole string of journalists to come into the market, and you familiarize them for 2 to 3 days. You fill the agenda with everything that your community has to offer. They go back, they write about your community, and they influence other people to come and stay in the community. So Susan we had 3 people end up coming. It was a wonderful weekend. We went from Friday night, sunshine and wonderful weather, to Sunday morning, freezing snow. But we did everything from the gardens and the tour here with Joe Houle. Joe Houle is the best tour guide ever. So these are just some pictures that we did. We took them out Friday to Lance Ledoux's, to Bayonet Cruises. We weren't able to go out on the boat. It was too windy. But he does a great job of collaborating also with the distillery. So he brings in local people as well. Who knew that one of the nuggets we had in Onslow County that people outside of the market would think was a little gem would be Saigon Sam's. So all the journalists loved it. Some pictures from Friday night on the boat. And Sarah, one of the bloggers, actually ran in, this was the weekend of the marathon. She actually, this was the weekend, I'm sorry, of the
St. Patty's Day Extreme.
Yeah, the Extreme
Engineers
Challenge. And she ran in that race. She thoroughly enjoyed it. She wrote a lot about it, and she placed well. Good for her. So one of the things we did, speaking of outdoors, was we talked to them about the Sturgeon City. We took them to Sturgeon City, and we talked to them about what the incredible story and what the city did to clean up the river. And then we took them out on the river after we went to Sturgeon City and saw the video. We took them out on the river and showed them the efforts of the city's cleanup of the river. And the story really, really resonated with them. A couple of them had not even been kayaking before. So we took them out thanks to Paddle NC. And it was wonderful. They all enjoyed it. Then we took them to Hot Import Nights. There was a lot going on that weekend. Did the fountain at night. Here's some more photos. This is the end result, some of the blog photos that, some of their highlights of the weekend. So they love Jeff's. Saigon Sam's, that picture was taken. She made me take it. She posted it. She thought it was wonderful. Then the 14th and 15th, we had Visit NC was in. And they were here for 48 hours. And Glenn hosted them as a social media influencer program. As part of that program, they were here for 48 hours and they did the whole tour as well. Rewinding back to Susan inviting the people for the FAM tour, what happens is some of them are busy, some of them can't come, they have other obligations. What you're doing is you're putting your message out there to these people. So this girl, Michelle Perry, wasn't able to come to the FAM tour. She contacted Susan a couple weeks later and said, I'm kind of interested. I'm in DC and I'm traveling back to Charleston. I'd like to stop by. Can you host me for a weekend? So we threw some things together, Glenn and I, and we hosted her for the weekend anyway. This girl has a blog site, Black Southern Belle. She is strong. 388 unique monthly visitors to a blog site. I mean, all over the world. That is strong. She actually has 15,000 Instagram followers. I looked it up today. And her father was in the Navy, so she was interested in the military community. She came, and she really and truly became even more powerfully, I think she was emotional, much more so about her father's military connection than she was before. So that was a great tour with her that weekend, and the things that she wrote were just phenomenal. Then I'm going to let Glenn speak to this. We went to the Visit NC 365 with the county tourism folks and Kevin and Kim. Part of that, you go in and present your story, your media pitch. And Glenn went in and did the media pitch. Only one person's allowed to go, so Glenn, being the journalistic guy that he is, went in and did our media pitch. And these are some of the results just from the media pitch that he did.
Well, I can't say enough. Christian and I lucked out because she went on behalf of the county, and I went, and we sat side by side, and we were a powerful 1-2 punch there as it
Yep.
was. And we've got some interest in these people. As you can see, these are great influencers on that page, and we're still reaping some of the benefits from that conversations that we had there.
Then the last weekend of the month, Joe My Gosh was here, and this was through our state connection, and we wanted a military blogger, and she is just that. She's really powerful, and she has 82,000 people following her monthly, and 7,200 people on Facebook. She's really strong in social media as well, and she is really all about military. So this is just an example. This is what she wrote. I can't really see it. This military town is reinventing itself, and we're going to check it out. So she had some really great things to say about our community, and they don't really fluff it up. I mean, they give it from their own experience. That's what makes them successful. And the impact from her blogs was, this is just an example, Bayonet Cruises, some of the things he had to say about it. He had numerous charters, numerous people from her blogs that called him and booked cruises, came and stayed in Jacksonville and booked cruises on his boat. He is ecstatic at the work that she did for him.
And this was for all of our digital influencers,
I'm sorry.
all that had come. They benefited from this exposure.
Okay.
These are some of her actual posts.
So, and we also have, one of the requirements, and we have it here for you, is we have proof of performance. If you guys ever want to take a look at it, we require, and you have it on the table, proof of performance from the money that we spend with these folks and what we actually get. So, return on investment, we spent $6,000 with the state Travel and Tourism Partnership to make all this happen. And earned media, we got back $65,000 plus. That's an $8.50 return on investment. In marketing world in which I live, that's a great big thank you. That's a great big yes. We'll take that. So.
And I'm going to speak now a little bit about owned media. as indicated, we got all that earned media from some effects that we did as through the social influencers and through the connections. It was mentioned about Susan's connection with Southern Living Magazine and the connection with Washington Post. Getting a front page is huge about getting some earned media as it is. But when we have owned media, and then we also have placed media where we buy ads and things and do things such as that. But this owned media, this is our platforms. And of course, as a city, we maintain 21 platforms to get to and let our citizens be connected to us. I mean, it's quite a number as it was. But 3 of those are dedicated to tourism. And Visit in Jacksonville, NC is our Facebook page, and we hope that all you authority members like this page, and so you can drive likes to it too and encourage others to do this as it is. And this is where we share across platforms what's going on. This is our website, Visit Jacksonville, NC. By the way, we own 6 different domain names in all the iterations so that we can make sure we get the right ones for that. So we bought all that we could buy that would be connected to Jacksonville NC Visit and See Jacksonville NC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera there. And as you can see from this screen snapshot, we're promoting the gold medal ceremony that will be held later this month as part of what later next month, forgive me, August, where they'll celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Montford Point Marines too. So please, we ask you to visit this site also. And then, of course, this is a city webpage. But we duplicate some entries on the city website with a deeper dive. For instance, on the travel and tourism side, we don't give all of the history that we might know about the Lejeune Memorial Gardens. We refer them back over to here. So if you want to take a deeper dive than what tourism language is, we have that available for you here on the city webpage as it is too. Now, as she indicated, there's a lot of change that has occurred in the strategy. From our first days, that is the chairman talked about, don't duplicate what is being done with the county, don't do these things as it is there. And we learned with what has come back from the Randall marketing study and what we have now found is the capability to be done through the bloggers and digital influencers. We have things that we want to change. But I want to take you back real fast to that early time that was in that 2010, 2011 time, and somebody in this room should recognize this picture. The occupancy was very high. And so there were a lot of places, the national change saw that clearly, and investors, and they wanted to invest in hotels here in Jacksonville because they perceived that the market could be lucrative, and there was a lot of occupancy, and the rates were pretty good at the time as it was too. So a lot of new construction was authorized, that being authorized by those who are paying the bills, not by, otherwise. So we had a real change in the number of hotel rooms. In 2010, when we began and had that record year, we didn't have but 1,800 rooms here in Jacksonville. That's it. And now we have over 2,500. When Melody's new facility opens, it will drive the number up to 2,500 facilities. Now, we're just talking about in the city of Jacksonville. Kristen has mentioned she's got more than this number because she's got facilities in Swansboro and North Topsail Beach and Richlands. So, the number, though, is not far away from this number, but nonetheless, she has the whole entity of the county. So when we looked at the Randall study, and that's also included in your documents, it's online for those who wish to see it, they came back with a little different skew of what they had found from the hoteliers. 34% military, looking at 27% business and 21% leisure and 15% business. And of course, we think the number about sports is probably higher. But we also think that some people said they were here for business that may well have been here for business with the military. Equally, this leisure number that's here, they might have been in there from something that was dealing with the military families, but they didn't say that as it was. And I have no idea what's going on here. But on the 2.6% sports, that equates to around 3,200 room nights that sports has been generating up to this date. And we know now that Scott's here, that number will just triple and dipple and go all over the place here. But to the point, it gave credence to the 4 pillars that we have targeted for on this matter. The military outdoor, particularly water activities, the paddling adventures, the type of events they want to come and see at Sturgeon City, these experiential type things that we see in there. But we want to talk for just a moment on sports. And of course, I don't want to steal the thunder of what Scott might say today to you during his report. This is basically some documents that were prepared a little bit of time ago, but they're still valid to show you the impact of sports that they had on this year that we were looking at. This is FY16, 51 events with a return of investment of $124. That is what government is paid to operate and to do their matters there. They came back with an economic impact that produced was $124 as it is. That was 3,200 room nights during that time and $2 million worth of overall economic impact that had come from this opportunities that they had done. That shows that investing in sports is a wise thing. And to those, and you might, in mentioning about Harry Brown, he was the chairman that the city council put in place to be of the ad hoc committee that created the Jacksonville-Onslow Sports Commission. So he saw that during that time, and Mr. Hagan was on that committee and others. It was impressive what communities can do with sports development. And of course, Mr. Scott's predecessor there has gone to try to start that in another community that wants that type of stuff. And we talked about impact, the impact of experiences, people that want to feel something special from their visit, not just a place to go, but something where their personal experience is advanced by an item off their bucket list, something that talks to them as to one, they're going to put that in a memory, and that's a special memory. When we were first starting this, the Marine Corps Half Marathon had but 300 runners. That's it. When we were able to help push the message, just push the message out beyond the borders of Jacksonville-Onslow County, because MCCS could not advertise outside of the gate about the Marine Corps Half Marathon. 1,300 runners in 2016 and 1,200 room nights. Now think about it. That's basically a one-day event that's there with a packet pickup on Friday evening, 1,200 room nights. I recall vividly sitting there with Melody on the first time that we got involved in this, and we had the packet pickup at her facility and a pasta dinner there and things, and we said, this was unbelievable, the number of people who wanted to have their pictures made with these stand-up signs that we had just brought out to bring a little visual eye candy to the matter there. They were wanting the experience. They wanted people back home. That social media, the woman with the taking the selfie, that's what was happening. That's the market we're going after now for this type of event. It's all about that experience in running. Now, toward the end of this, this is where the authority has authorized this. We're now in our second year of the strategic initiative. And you've seen this slide before that Teresa spoke to of. This is the key things that we're funding right now with our funds for this matter, telling our story and these other items. And I'm going to mention this. In telling our story, we're benefiting by partnering with the state. We could shoot this video, we could do this, but by letting them do a video on where heroes train, we got it on Visit NC website. So it's right up there where people can see it and experience what it's like to be here in Jacksonville. We've contracted with the Chamber to help with military reunions. Next month, there'll be a group of us going down to Columbus, Georgia to experience how that community deals with reunions, and we're going to see what happens there. We also know we can parlay this into the African-American heritage that routes that people want to take, potentially even high school reunions and other things. This is a matter that's in development, and we'll be basically feasting at the feet of people who know what they're doing to tell us how to do this as it was. We invested in the Sports Commission to give them additional funds so they could bring on some staff, that they would provide 2 to 3 new sporting events each year with 100 room nights, and that they would have a 3-year commitment so they could build this up over time. And one of them had to be some sort of water-based event during this period of time. We were contracted with the United Way. We'll create a docent program. One of the things we learned during the 75th anniversary and the program that we had following that was the value of having local people welcome, give that hospitality. I mean, you think about Carol Hurst Long and Sandy Wyrick welcoming people down there. I mean, that level of hospitality really had a value to it. And we are working the docent program. We're going to use them to help start the tours of the Lejeune Memorial Gardens, and that's going to go first. And that's what we're saying here is we have the memorial tours that we'll use the docents for, and we'll work with some signage, potentially some mobile apps and some things such as that. The base tours, a little harder nut to crack, but we're going to keep working on that as it was. We've gotten some ideas from some leaders aboard the base as to how we might be able to do that as it is. So our strategic work continues on the media plan that we have. Basically, we have this Google Doc that goes on for days about how the expenditures will be made over time because we're strategically placing them throughout the periods here. We're unifying buys, we're sharing with others. Kristen has offered us some chances to buy into several different projects that she has launched and started, and we're doing cross-promotion with facilities and such there as it was. We did bring aboard some people such as Teresa's expanded what she's doing for us because frankly, the staff can't do all that we have with the city, and we do this too, so we've had to have that. And we have some teams that are responding to it. Kristen has stepped up, and I know that Scott will at the appropriate time to help out on these things. We've just basically drafted many things in there. So now we're going to speak briefly about the Tourism Promotion Fund and to go to that effect there. And the effect of that was is we brought in a strategic initiative panel. This panel reviewed all of the events and festivals that we had. They made some recommendations using objective scoring, and we've actually changed the projector, the trajectory, excuse me, of where they're going to increase those overnight stays as it was. And we put conditions on events so that we would be very good in what we're going with there. And some of them are out to enhance the experience for visitors. Some of them are sharing audiences, and some of them use the docents for objective guest surveying. One of the things that was enhancing the visitor experience was done with the Hero Mile. This was something we tried at the Marine Corps Half Marathon. In the surveys that were done after it, this impact, people said they were brought to tears. People said that they were moved by what had happened there. This was 1 mile of people who had passed since 9/11, and their pictures were displayed, as you see here. And obviously, this picture speaks for itself as to how people responded to this as they rode along in this race that is entirely aboard a military installation. Now, we're going to talk a little bit now about money.
Glenn?
Yes.
Let me just interrupt you for a minute. Are there any questions? I mean, I know we're feeding a lot of information to you today, but we felt like it was important for you to get a good history. Anything?
Nope. I'm
Okay,
good.
Glenn?
Okay,
Continue.
good. Well, basically, this is where the pink money and the green money come from. The blue money is the money that Ms. Maids administers up here, and with the budgeted revenue, what the administrative fee is, and then the net for distribution, and then the 2/3 for pink for promotion, and the 1/3 for tourism-related expenses. In that green money, this is what the authority has voted on at their May 25th meeting to allocate for that money as it was, including among the Heroes Visitor Center. And then the spending plan for the pink money is some of it will be using funds that were not previously spent in years past.
Glenn, can you go back one slide real quick? I want to give just a quick note on the Corman Memorial.
Yes, sir.
Speak to that. The county has participated their portion of it, so we're very excited that that will be moving forward as another addition to Memorial Gardens. So we're very excited about that.
Is their contribution the same as ours?
Yes.
Yes, $45,000.
Yes. So we're very,
Yes,
yes. It's,
no. They had
so
to make an
this
adjustment.
is what their request was, and so anyways, that's going to be moving forward, so that's really exciting.
Yes.
So, go ahead, Glenn.
Yes, sir. Anyway, to the point, we're bringing up some money from the reserve, because once the money comes in that's pink money, it stays pink money, can only be spent on pink things, and we're responding to those pink things, and that's what
Not
that is.
pantyhose, just regular.
So in the tourism promotion fund, that's the events and festivals and activities as it is there. They're actually events. That's $250,000. We have a reserve set in there because things come up during the year, and we also have some administrative funds to help administer the fund, and we have the panel that helps us with overseeing this investing. Basically, the panel costs are what our investment is in future events that can drive overnight stays. In the part of this, we look back upon the 1/3, 2/3 here, and I'm going to talk more about the pink stuff there. And these are the state partnerships. The chairman has been very much insistent that we continue to partner with the state. And so we have increased the amount of money that we spend directly with the state in support of the travel and tourism throughout the state. Partner support, that's our support to, for instance, like the Sports Commission as it is. Visitor Experiences is our project that's for the signage and wayfinding and things such as that. The Strategic Initiative Fund projects, that is what we spoke of there, is what's being done for this document that we've shown you multiple times here as it is. And here is the allocation of how that fund comes to be. And by the way, all this is in the documents that you folks have here, so you don't have to jot it down as it is. And online, it's online for this agenda item here. So you can see what the reunion has. The two new items are the on-site media tours, which we've already seen what the benefit was from the digital influencers coming in, and the website optimization. We know we need to make additional changes to our website and do some things to it, so this is the budget to help us with that optimization there as it was. These are the assistants that we have. The firms of Susan Dozer with DK Communications and Teresa. As you see, that's the Columbus, Georgia. That's our trip down there to them to take care of things. We were strongly encouraged to do an intercept visitor identification thing. That's kind of on hold right now, and you'll see a reference to it in the agenda. But Kristen has a significant background in doing these things, and so we're hopeful that maybe we can do some of it with Christian's guidance here to do it kind of in-house, so to speak, as it goes there. And then we have some money set aside for contingencies as they come up. The Strategic Initiative Implementation Fund is basically set aside to implement those things that we didn't know what to expect to spend from those other events. It could be included wrapping a bus for the, for the tour of the base. It could be doing things such as that. The Sports Development Fund basically is a set aside. So if the Sports Commission needs to do a bid for a sporting event or something similar to that that's strategic in nature, they can tap into this fund for that bid money to get that event to come here as it was. And of course, he'll be more learned on this than I ever did. Unfortunately, bidding in some of the components is getting to be a big deal around there. And then we set aside $15,000 for special events because we don't know what we're going to expect. Advertising and branding, that's what we actually spend both in placed and digital media. And
If I may just add, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but
It's
just
okay.
information. That's a spending plan. So a lot of that money is budgeted. We vote on everything. So in other words, just that money set aside, should a need arise, it will come before the board for approval before that expenditure is made. Does that make sense? When we do our budget, we have to put money aside for specific things that may come up, but you will always vote on that spending when that time comes. Okay?
And this is the last thing we have on the orientation, what the chairman mentioned. This is the sports destination study that came back and suggested a multi-purpose center and to go forward with that as it was. And so that is what's out there in the future for this matter. And Mr. Chairman and our members, that's all we have for you is a brief orientation.
Glenn, thank you. Teresa, thank you. Great presentation. I know it was quite a bit, but there's a lot going on in this arena. A lot of information. At any time, please feel free if you have any questions. Once you get time to go through the documents that are provided and budgets and that sort of thing, any questions at all, please forward them to myself or Glenn or any of us. We'll be glad to give you any information that you need. But again, just to reiterate, when we set a budget, for example, the signage budget, that money's been set aside for particular signage, but we haven't actually voted on moving forward with any particular signs as of yet. So that will always come before the board for approval. But in order to do some of our work, we have to put that money aside to do that work, okay? Glenn, thank you again. A lot of information that has been passed forward. I think we are on item
You're at number 7, sir.
Number 7, spending plan implementation, which is these are a number of agreements that are contained in our spending plan, and it was already approved, and basically I just need authorization as the chairman to execute the contracts that we've already agreed upon. within our spending plan. Glenn?
And as a note to that, sir, we know we're going to be, now, what we have, just to make sure everybody's clear on this, we have a budget. The budget ordinance is adopted, and the budget ordinance pursuant to the finance director's guidance is very simple. The budget, unlike the city's budget, the budget says, here's what comes in, here's what's held for administrative purposes, here's what is available to be spent for pink money on promotion and those things, and here's what's available to be spent for green money. That's the budget. That's what the document says. The documents that we're talking about right now is a spending plan. It's a flexible plan. It moves and lives and breathes and makes things happen on there. But there's some things that you've obviously authorized, such as having contracts with people, making sure that we have the people here to get things done. And we now need the authorization for the chairman to sign those agreements. And he's going to do so, and anything he signs, to make sure that when we know the flip that may or may not come, which we know that is supposed to be inevitable, that we're not spending something that we won't have the funds for, because the bill becomes effective July 1st, post-dated. So the money changes its color as it comes in. But again, we've got enough pink money left over from past years, we're not going to be in trouble for that.
Right. And also, John obviously reviews every contract that is brought for signing in terms of the actual contract wording and keeps us straight. The only thing you're authorizing me to do is to execute your will as this signature person.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to authorize the chairman to execute agreements and contracts consistent with the adopted spending plan with consideration for a change in the spending plan.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion, questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Now we'll move under item number 8, validation, empirical, and strategic review.
Well, I can fly through these really
Yeah, if
fast
you
and
don't
tell you
mind.
that we brought we melded them into the orientation. The validation, empirical, and strategic review is the intercept plan. I mentioned what we're going to be doing with that. The tourism promotion fund, we've executed all the agreements with, but for 2. For that, and so we're advancing those efforts. The strategic initiative, the way we're on that, the reunion work, obviously, we're going to be going for that immersion project down to Georgia for that coming up next month. And on the calendar, we have been, as a staff and team, working on a comprehensive calendar for the year, and that will be hopefully finished very shortly here.
Thank you, Glenn.
So that takes care of 8, 9, 10.
Any questions? Okay, well, it's your moment to shine, Scott.
Great.
Okay.
Where am I again? I've only been here 3 weeks. So very excited to be here. Have loved my short time in Jacksonville so far. Glenn and Colonel Kopka and Steve Goodson and so many folks have been so hospitable. So it's been great, and getting to meet some of you guys today that I've heard a lot about. So,
Hopka's been hospitable.
well, in his own
Person that
way.
you know?
In his own way, he's
I
been
got
hospitable. And if you guys are ready to break ground on the new multi-use facility, I'll get my shovel now and we'll go out there and get started. So
I'll buy the shovel.
it will be tremendous. But I'll share again. I've not even been here 3 weeks yet, but give you a little info of something that just occurred and then some upcoming events. So last weekend, the senior softball, Susan and her staff hosted them out at the Commons. There was 19 teams in town. We don't have the hard numbers back yet, but estimated about 360 room nights, about 90,000 in economic impact. And they conveyed to myself and to Susan, I believe, that they want to continue coming back here year after year. So that should be something we can get done for next year. And then just to share some upcoming events that we are either the host of or help support. This Saturday, also Susan and her staff at the Commons, the Running with the Law. One of our big annual events is the football jamboree on August 11th. We have all 8 county teams as well as 8 teams from outside the county that will be playing at Northside High School. Media day for that will be Tuesday. It will actually be here. We're going eat across the street and have the media interviews here, and then go watch the coaches have a wing eating contest afterwards. So that'll be entertaining. And then August 18th through the 19th is the Sanders Ford Battle at the Beach soccer event. And then, of course, we get into the Marine Half Marathon, helping with the packet pickup and some other activities. I'll kind of stop with September there. One other thing I do want to mention, as you saw in one of those slides, the Sports Commission had committed to creating a water-based event. With staff turnover and myself just arriving, we got a little late start on that this year. However, working with Susan and the Parks folks, working with the Arts Council, potentially some involvement from the Museum of the Marine, and maybe and Paddle NC and maybe some others, we are going to have an event on September 16th of some sort that will involve some water and more like a festival. But getting that in place this year so that then, in addition to that, we can create a water-based competition next year. Again, don't know what that's going to look like at this time, but we'll already have some of those events in place to make that somewhat unique. In this age of competition, just about any event that you guys can name, there's 40 of those events going on within 2 hours of us. So we have to do some things to make them want to choose our event over a similar event that's down the road. So we believe by getting this started this year, we can build on that for next year, add the water-based competition, and start creating a nice event there. But that's what I have for you right now. I have to find out what a Paul Parker is later after the meeting. But if anybody has any questions for me, I would love to answer them.
Thank you, Scott. The only thing I'll add, I haven't had a chance to meet with you. I just tell you one thing that's unique with Onslow County and our community, and I think Ken and others may agree, that we have an interesting community. I spent many years in sports and youth soccer specifically. And one of the things that we are noted for is incredible athletic ability within our youth and our community. We've had state championships. And one thing that I believe sets us apart from a lot of communities when we talk about, 20 of the same events in other communities, one thing that I found during my years of travel was that when we entered a tournament and people knew that we were from Jacksonville, Onslow County, they knew that they were going to get some competition. So I think anything that we ever host here is automatically escalated in level of play. So I think you got that going for you. Would I be incorrect in saying that?
No, not a bit.
So that does set us apart, and I think that's a tool in your tool bag when you're thinking about future events and what we have to bring to the table. We have incredible youth, a great deal of talent, and when you pull them together, there's not many in the state that can compete with us, and I think you'll find that to be an asset.
Well, there's some great things that we can build on. I met the gentleman from that run the Battle of the Beach soccer tournament this morning, and just in a brief 20-minute conversation, we've already kind of identified a potential way of adding 16 teams next year, and they would all be out-of-town teams because the local teams are already all participants. So we can grow existing events, create some new events, and very appreciative of what the TDA does, because without that money, all those things are very difficult to do. So thank you very much for your vision for what sports can be in this area.
Thank you. Anybody? Okay, thank you. Kristen,
Hello.
how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
As you know, the budget for Onslow County was approved along with tourism, so we're sticking with what we had last year. And then they also went over and approved several events, got some money, including like Engaged Onslow, National Night Out. They threw money at the list. You can look it up and all that. Pretty much the staples that have gotten it in the past. They did award some money to Topsail Island's Jeep Week, and so that will be the first year they're giving money to them, which is exciting because it's going to go towards the obstacle course, which was the big attraction for it last year. Of course, last year being the first year of it. And so it will take place September 22nd through the 24th, and the obstacle course will be in Holly Ridge area, so that will be in Onslow County, right behind the VFW off of 17. So you'll be able to go back there. It's owned by a gentleman who does construction work. I can't recall which one. I don't want to say the wrong name, but it's where he gets his dirt from and everything. So he was like, oh, perfect place for it. And so they're hoping that they'll be able to leave it and be able to build on it from the years to come. It is the thing that kind of sets it apart from what the Outer Banks does with theirs and some of the others. So it's nice that they're able to make that even better. We have renewed our digital marketing contract with our company, Punch Drunk Digital. We are planning this year for FY18 to focus on a general campaign and then add any of the big events that go along with it. We saw wonderful results over what we did since January with them. Just for an example, in June, our campaign we ran, it was just a basic sort of Onslow Outdoors campaign, and it performed over 2,000% better than the average. So it's very exciting to see what we can grow with that, taking what we learned from Judy's stuff and trying to build on everything that everybody has put efforts in and see where we can go over this next year. We're also looking into bringing in some new marketing efforts on our end that we can do, maybe start adding to the travel writers and bringing in stuff like that. And just, there's some good stuff going on, so to continue to build on that. Some of the festivals coming up, of course, the Shrimp Festival's in 2 weekends down in Sneads Ferry. And then in October, Swansboro will have their Mullet Festival as well as Cycle and Sea. They will actually be stopping in Swansboro. I think they've stopped trying to get closer to the coast than they're already here. They've decided 2 years in a row was enough of being called early. So it will end in Swansboro. And then I'm actually meeting with Chuck Strickland. We're going to spend the day on the south end of the county, and we're actually going to try to go talk to the New Hampton Inn that will be opening down there, start making a relationship with them, and just sort of rechecking in with all our partners on that end and see where we can go from there. I will note the Our State magazine that mentioned Jeff Burgers also included the trailer bar in Surf City, whole article, 3-page article on it. So that's about as close to Pender County line as you can get, but they do sit in Onslow County, so we've gotten quite recognition in that one issue of it, so it's very exciting. And then Spectacular Magazine, who is out of Raleigh, they're an African-American based magazine. They're all digital, so they do a lot of YouTube videos and stuff like that. They were actually in town over the 4th of July weekend covering the Ocean City Jazz Festival. And Craig called me up and they wanted to cover some other stuff, so I spent Sunday with them, July 2nd, and we did a little tour of the gardens where they covered some stuff. Dr. Francis and Houston and them set us up to be able to do a tour at the museum, Mumford Point Museum, and then we went and showed them some of the heritage trail sites along with sort of getting some seafood in Swansboro, stuff like that, because they were able to cover the south end. Thankfully, they did not need me to go down there that weekend because it was crazy, which is a good thing. But we were able to cover some of the north end stuff as well. So that's exciting. I'm waiting to see what they're going to be able to pull from that. I know that they have plans to use some of it for like Veterans Day, as well as some of the future Black History Month. They want to bring some of it in. So it's going to be coverage we'll be able to get over the next year as well. So that's a very brief report, sir. But
Thank you, Kristen. A lot of information.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir.
Next order of business, we're going to quickly go over the occupancy tax collections, which we're obviously noting a 5% increase year to date. So I'll turn it over to Gail or Glenn, whoever wants to.
It's on the screen and it's in your document there. We did want to show you that 54% of the collections still come from Western Boulevard. You're getting 2% collections from online. We are 5% above where we were for 2017, and not all facilities have reported at this time. With where we were from the same time in the 2-year trend line for the county, we are down from that as it was, but that's the historical timeline that occurred in FY10 for references there. This shows over the total collections with some of the trend lines that are there and indicate just how you can definitely see that the low part is in the December and February areas. It starts coming back up with the exception of that 13-15 era as it was there. The green line is the Onslow County average before we started levying the tax in Jacksonville as it was there. So that's a brief report for you, sir.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Glenn, do you want to go over the One City moment?
Yes.
Please.
As you know, the mayor has launched a One City program. We put a card about the program there in front of you. And what they've asked is that basically that during our meetings that we all reflect on this program. It is also an honor to the Caring Community motto that many of you know came to be from the first Gulf War assigned to Jacksonville. And part of this is to reflect about how we treat each other and treating each other with civility and collaboration and cooperation. And so this was a good time that during the meetings we can talk about something that you might have seen or heard that you thought emulated or spoke well to the One City campaign.
Okay, I will kick it off to tell you that, we just have such a wonderful relationship with the county leaders. I myself with Chairman Bright, a great human being, and we have such a wonderful relationship, and I think that's a testament of the hard work between the two communities, the city and the county, and it's not something that's always shared, and I think it needs to be noted that we work well together and that we all realize that we serve the same citizens. So I think it's appropriate to share.
So for the next year, this will be on your agenda as an item for you to talk about.
Does any directors have any comments or any questions?
I do, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind.
No, Ken, please.
If you'll notice on the front of our minutes here, it says the 51st meeting of this board. And I would say that this is almost a beginning of a new era for us. We've got a new director for the Sports Commission with us. We have 2 new members of this organization. We've had the flip of the tax. And I think going forward, we're going to look back on this meeting as the beginning of something that's very exciting for the community. This committee needs to start looking very quickly at how we can make that 2/3 work for this community, work for the hoteliers and the restaurants in the community. As Scott just indicated, a rather small event this weekend that generated over 100 rooms. And we can take that and run with it now that this flip has been made. I really believe that. And it's so interesting, as a charter member of this organization and a charter member of the Sports Commission, I find it very interesting when we go back and look at where we started. And when we started, if you recall, Mr. Chairman, when we started at this table, we really didn't know what we were doing because we hadn't done it before. And to look back and review the history of where we were and where we've come, you can understand how excited we should be about the flip and what we can do in the next 7 or 8 or 10 years. Well, 10 years, I guess. So I'm just beside myself about where we are today, and I think we'll look back at the 51st meeting and say, wow, it started then. So
I don't know that I'll be here, but.
well, I plan on being here because I'm going to buy the shovel for Scott.
There you go.
And again, I would like to thank Senator Brown for his efforts in making that happen. I know he got a little bloody over it a couple of times, but I've had a conversation with him, and he doesn't mind that. And I just think that we ought to compliment him for digging in there and making this happen. That's it for me.
Thank you, Ken. Anyone else? All right. Without any further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a second? Come on, Miguel, give us a second. Thank you.